Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Made in Truth. Today, we're going to talk about a subject that's very deep in my heart and in my mind, and that is the legacy that we're going to leave our children and the mentoring that we could be doing. It's a it's a very deep thing that we as men should take seriously, and obviously it's not an easy one because of all the things that take place in a man's life, beginning with work and pulling him from many different directions, and then next thing you know, time goes by and the legacy and the mentorship were put aside. So i want to I want to kind of bring an emphasis and a reminder and encouragement. If you're an older man, you have a lot to share with other young people. It is very important, and I tell you why it's very important, because it only takes a look at the world and the way it is, and we can conclude that it's just not going in the right direction. And so, from the biblical perspective, uh, the answer is obvious, and we can extrapolate it from this verse in Proverbs 26:19, where it says, "So is the man that deceiveth his neighbor, and saith, Am not I in sport?" So what that means is basically that there's a lie, and when I say a lie, I mean any form of hurting other people that can be pushed to other people, and when you question the source of that lie, when you question the reason why that took place, that hurt, the answer is basically, I was just kidding. And that's the world that we live in. uh, and when I say I was just kidding, basically that comes in different forms, like for example, you call the place to find out what happened to my information, and oh, we haven't we mailed it. We called the place, um, and then it turns out that no, they didn't. And so it boils down to oh, we forgot, or somebody dropped the ball. And obviously there's things like that that do happen. There's accidents, mistakes, and all that. But we're living in a world where those things are becoming more frequent, and soon people are gonna realize that, and there's a lot of people that are realizing already, that this world has an enemy. Man and families have an enemy, and all the attacks that we see in this world, it's not just because people want to hurt other people. Uh, what's the word? Because of their own doing or thinking. When we look at the biblical framework, we realize that mankind has an enemy that's beyond the physical realm, the physical, beyond the tangible things that we see. It's in the spiritual area, and we have an enemy that's interacting, influencing the people. And I say that because we need to be aware of that. And obviously, uh, it's not a secret thing. The Bible has not been in a secret location where we would say, well, nobody knew where the Bible was. Well, it's been out in the open for everybody to read. But as the pressures and the evil in this world rise, uh, people are gonna become more aware, not necessarily willingly, but become more aware uh, that we need to do something about it. And one of those things that we can do is to mentor our children, mentor young men, even mentor adults that need mentoring in the right direction. And so, what's the right direction? Well, some may say, well, there's no right direction. Yes, there is a right direction, you know. And the basis to know the right direction, to simplify it, is life and freedom. So think about life and freedom. Do you want life? Do you want freedom? Well, what gives you the right to have it? See, so that's where we enter into a moral standard. What gives you the right to have life and to have freedom? So that moral standard does not come from a person or a government or an agency. That moral standard comes from God Himself. That's why we were given the Bible. Because we were given the Bible not by man but by God, so that we could have that truth. So unless if we don't believe in God, then we're not gonna be able to uh, uh, fight for that moral standard of the right to life, the right to freedom. And to me, that's very obvious. That's very clear. Uh, God says the rule, and He says um, that extrapolated from the Bible. If He sends a human being to this earth, it's because that's His will. It doesn't become any clearer to me than that. But there's many verses that basically points us to life in the Bible. The Lord Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father but by me. And so that's the center point of our fight. That's the center point of us having the motivation to push forward. That's the motivation to mentor, to teach, to leave a legacy. And so as we can see in the and not just by what I'm saying, but as we can see from what we see in the world, at the tangible level, there's two options there, two places to be at. You can either have freedom or slavery. And these days, although there was a slavery many years ago, I believe there's a slavery in the world even more than before, because now we don't just have physical slavery, but we have a mental slavery. And so the fight is still there, the oppression is still there. And so what do we want for our children? Slavery or freedom? Because if we want freedom for our children, then we have to not only fight for that freedom for them, but not just hand it to them freely. You know, a lot of us know that when we hand something for free, the value of that which was handed to that person is not as important as the value that that thing had from the person that gave it, you know. And so it is the same thing with freedom. We don't just hand it to the new generation. We had to mentor them on what it is and how to preserve it. And so that's the reason why I'm making this video, and I don't want to make it too long. We're already close to 10 minutes. I'm probably going for 20 minutes here, and I'm hoping that you stay with me because this is very important. And And so you're listening from a guy that's not, I don't want to say anything detrimental against myself, but I want to remain humble. And the humble part of me says, uh, you don't know everything. And it's okay to say, I don't know when I don't know. That's not only a humble thing to do, but it's the right thing to do. And so I want to stay always within that humble thing because it's actually the right thing to do for the listener. You don't want to spread lies, but you want to stay within what is truth. And the truth here is that we need to mentor young people. We need to pass down that which is good, that which is right, and that which they need to overcome. And so, even though I may not know everything, there's some things that I can share. And I hope that you take this message also to heart and realize that there are things that you can share. There's there's good that everybody can share. And if I can share what I'm talking about, you can share just about the same thing or even better things. So that's the beauty of it, that God has given us gifts, and sometimes even information through our thinking, through the way we see life, that can be shared with others for the building up of other people. But in particular, men, because men are at the forefront of families, of governments, and I'm not trying to be detrimental to women at all. There's a lot of women that are fighting the good fight, and that is very much commendable, because if a man cannot step up, a woman has to, and that requires a lot of courage. That's very much commendable. One of the things that I wanted to mention is, in particular for younger men, is we are entering into a time in history where it's basically AI stuff, stuff where the information is going to become cloudy. If, no pun intended. Information is on the cloud. But what that means is basically that it's gonna be hard to tell what is right from wrong, what is reality from fiction, what's the actuality versus what was fake. So now is the time to get anchored. We need to get this generation to get anchored in the truth, and was solid, and was factual, in true history. So in order to do that, you have to either search for the right books, search for the right people, uh, listen to older people, listen to their stories. Doesn't mean listen to everybody, because not everybody wants to tell the truth, or is willing to tell the truth, or are kind of some people may be too loose with their stories. But you need to start forming your mentality, your worldview, according to the truth, so that you get anchored in what's factual. There's no point on listening to a lot of stuff that's not factual, right? So now is the time to store that information in our minds, because we have that enemy that wants to break families, that wants to destroy countries. And we see that in scripture. This verse right here is not just talking about men, but it's talking about the nature of the evil one. the devil that wants to steal men's souls. And so, with that in mind, um, a lot of people may say, well, uh, some people may have a calling, and that's not my calling. Well, that might be true, but my thinking is that uh, we all have the calling. We all have the responsibility to do the right thing. And so we are in the times where we need to engage and participate in these things that are important. So there's a need out there, and I hope that that you recognize that there's a need. And right now we have a lot of mentors. So with that, I wanted to also introduce you to this video of Charlie Kirk and Jordan Peterson. They were having a conversation about let me see if I can pinpoint it here. All right, let's listen to what they say. But basically, well, let me tell you what they were saying in a way. That way you have a background. They're talking about Wilberforce, and they're talking about how they have not heard about him until recently, only until his 40s, and Charlie mentioned that he haven't heard about him until 5 years ago. And so I'm only saying that because there's a lot of things that we don't know, and in humbleness, I hope you agree with me that there's a lot of things that a lot of us don't know that we need to know, and we need to be more intentional about searching for the truth. And when we search for the truth, when we search for the things that are important, and when we put away all these things that take up our time, games and addictions and things that waste our time, then we can seek for the truth, we can be engaged, we can start building up, because that's what life is about, building up. The opposite is true. If you want to destroy life, then you don't build up, you just let it run its course, or worse, you attack it, and that's a sure way to destroy it. But you need to, I'm not telling you what to do, but you need to engage in listening to mentors. And I'm putting this because I can share some things, but there's a lot of people that have a lot of good insights, and I don't agree with everything that Jordan or Mr. Kirk says, but not all the time, let's put it that way. But I do agree with the majority of what they say, and so I want to share good mentors with you. I want to start getting engaged into cultivating your mind with the things that build you up, because if you build yourself up, you're going to be able to build other people up. And so let's listen to what they say.
So, but it was written by an African, that book.
Correct. And again, I'm drawing from almost a decade-old memory, but I remember the discussions we'd have in class were very much anti-colonialist, anti-Western, that we are the contaminants on the world, that we are polluting other tribes. And again, mind you, that we're in 8th or 9th grade discussing this, so I don't know what post-structuralism is or postmodernism.
Sorry about that, it's too early.
It was pre-woke.
But
we weren't quite there,
begins right
and so
few
from a
seconds.
historical standpoint, it was not 1619 project, but it was, we're going to spend a whole month on slavery, and we're going to spend 3 days on the founding.
Right, and did you spend any of the time when you were studying slavery assessing the fact that the UK was the only country that's ever existed in the history of the world that spent, 2 centuries and a tremendous proportion of its treasury eradicating slavery around the world at the behest of Protestant Christians?
Correct.
Because that's the story.
And I never remember knowing the name Wilberforce.
Wilberforce, yeah. See, this is a very interesting thing. You know, I actually didn't come across, this is so strange, but life is very strange. I didn't come across the name Wilberforce till I was probably in my 40s.
Isn't that amazing?
It's beyond comprehension.
I didn't get to know him until the last 5 years.
Last 5 years.
Yeah.
Is that right, eh? Is that
even
right?
Me, even
is that
in
right?
the political
even in that
world.
Milieu.
I might have heard it, but not until someone looked at me seriously and said, you have to study this guy. This is a preacher. This is a man of faith that led to the abolition of slavery, probably in the entire...
Under impossible conditions.
Exactly.
Right? He devoted his whole life to it. And the link between that and the religious ideation is rock solid.
It's one-to-one.
It's one-to-one, absolutely. And it's also the case that his ideas wouldn't have fallen on fertile ground, because they did relatively. Like, when you can make a radical cultural shift in one lifetime, which is no time at all historically, you know that you're at the forefront of ideas whose time has come.
Yes.
And that was clearly the case for Wilberforce. And he certainly is one of those people who stood up against the greedy, self-centered, and malevolent ethos of his time. But the UK swung around behind him impossibly rapidly, and then with their full might. And you know, I've learned a lot of things in the last...
Well, let's cut it right there. But what Jordan was saying is that you're at the forefront of ideas if you can make if the impact... if you can impact society. I guess there's different ways to impact society, but if you do make an impact, then in some ways you know you're at the forefront of ideas. And I hope I got that right, but you're not seeing the smartest pencil in the crayon box. But I showed this clip right here because I want you to understand that these two men, they didn't come to learn about Wilberforce but until a few years ago, but yet they had a lot to share. And now it does mean that they were missing out. They were missing out because you learned a lot through see, this is just right now that you're just learning by listening to other people, and I'm not just talking about me because what I'm teaching is very minor compared to these guys, but for example, Wilberforce, we learned from his doing, from his experience, from history. And so that's something that we're missing in our culture. So to wrap it up in a nutshell, basically in the same way that Charlie Kirk goes to or used to, because obviously we know what happened, but used to go to colleges and basically tell people college is a scam because do you know who this was? And they say no. And about this other person, and no. Well, you're not getting your money's worth on on what you're receiving, because the quality of what you're getting is not there. In the same way, mentoring has to be along the same lines. We have to have the right tools to pass along. If we wanted to leave a legacy of to our children, so that they can fight for freedom the right way, then we need to provide the tools. Now, granted, we are not the only ones that they can get those tools from, and that's a blessing. That's a beautiful thing. But we as men are called to be the center points of that legacy, so that they can draw from it in an easier manner in a manner that they don't get too many gaps, because it is those gaps that basically set the young man uh, delay. It delays his progress. It delays the growing internally. Um, so and that's what testifies to the importance of a father being in the family, because if the father is not there, the young man is going to grow with a lot of gaps in his mind, and he's going to wonder how things function. He's going to wonder what's the right thing to do, but he's not going to wonder on those things too long, because the world is going to have an answer for him very quickly. And so we need to fill those gaps very quickly. So let me show you something else here, another part of that video, and then we'll close it. All right, so in this part, what we're gonna hear is Jordan asking Charlie how he engages with his audience of young men, which is very important. But the point that I want to emphasize is kind of like not connected. In a way it is, and it is that the mentorship factor, we see it right here, because we're gonna see it in their conversation, the importance, and we're gonna see it also. I'm gonna take myself off the screen so that you can see. That's not what I wanted. Give me a second. Okay, there we go. So reason why I wanted to take off my screen is because, see that young man on the lower bottom? This is the result, and it's very important. This is the result of a legacy and mentorship. In a way, it is sad, but in another way, it's really good that a lot of young men are being mentored through the internet. Not necessarily what we want. We want fathers to be in their families, but when and I'm not saying that he doesn't have a father, but what I'm saying is that he has a lot of information, and I don't doubt that these two men, Jordan and Charlie, had been influential in his life, and he is a very smart young man. He recognizes that he can gather from them. So right here we see how that legacy is being passed, not directly, but it is passed to the new generation nevertheless. So that's very important. Let's listen to what they say.
What you're seeing, and then let's close with this, because I want your insights into this. What you're seeing when those working class men are coming to your talks, and they've become more and more popular, as you said, as you've advertised them, is they're looking for, it seems, they're looking for responsible direction.
Correct.
Okay, so now tell me how you've had to modify the manner in which you're conducting these debates, let's say, because for a while you would have been testing yourself to see if you could hold your own, and that's kind of an intellectual battle. Shapiro did it very much the same thing.
Yes, he deserves a lot of credit for that. Yes, correct.
Right? Too bad Milo fell off the edge of the world, but he had a pretty rough go of it.
He had a lot of talent, though.
He did, and a lot of trauma, a lot. So, okay, so first of all, it's combat, and you're trying to develop yourself, and then you're doing that quite successfully and educating yourself along the way, but then you see this shift.
Yeah.
So what sort of shift has there been in your self-conceptualization and your understanding of your mission and the way that you conduct yourself? Like, you see you're being called upon to be a leader, let's say, that's not merely political. And that's why my understanding of it.
Correct. It's an enormous responsibility. Enormous.
90% of traders.
Enormous. I mean, when I show up to college campus after college campus, Mind you, during the day, they have got a million other things they could be doing. This is 12 p.m. lunchtime, and 4,000 people are waiting for me to go debate.
And what are they on? They're on the campus grounds? Where?
Yeah, sometimes amphitheaters. They're in trees. They're everywhere. I mean, you could see these images. We could supply them to you if you want to.
Yeah, we should do that.
You could superimpose them over this discussion.
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah.
And I'm not making this up. I'm not exaggerating. I mean, they're as far as the eye can see. These crowds are there, and part of it, we must be honest, is they want to see a good verbal combat because they don't get it at the university. You see,
right.
They're not. There's something
that's partly likely part of the pathological feminization.
Yes, without
no competition.
But you think about it. What I am doing is hyper masculine, which is no rules except, hey, we're just going to go basically figure this out. This is the closest thing to a verbal street fight that one can have.
Right.
Anyone can show up to the mic, prove me wrong. I have no notes. I have no AI. I have nothing. Tell me why you're correct. For 3 hours, I will sit there and everyone will watch. It's a gladiatorial match for the best ideas of the West.
All right, so here we're gonna hear the comments of Elijah, which is the young man on the bottom right, and but just wanted to emphasize the importance of mentorship and legacy, and basically doing the right thing in our lifetime for the new generation. And if you like that path, if you want to engage into doing the right thing for young people, I encourage you to begin by building yourself up first. And the way to do it is by reading the Bible, because that's the moral standard. Not only as we receive it from the Old Testament, moral standard, beginning with the Ten Commandments. And I'm not talking about the law in its entirety, but we need to be aware of what's the moral standard that God has given us. And we also need to be aware of the grace and mercy of the Lord Jesus. And that's how we know, that's the only way to know that we're doing the right thing, when our foundation is basically what we have received from above. And so let's listen to Elijah. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, Silky. And we'll just leave it at that. And thank you for listening to me, and thank you for your time. May the Lord Jesus bless you and keep you until the next video. Bye now.
Yeah, I think that's cool. Like, I don't necessarily agree with everything that Charlie Kirk does and some of his stance on all this stuff, but I think it's awesome that he's a Christian and he's becoming super influential in so many different ways, and he has a voice to speak up for, hopefully, Christian values. So shout out to him, shout out to Jordan Peterson for all these guys making a difference in young men like me and other men to really make a difference. So that's absolutely awesome. And yeah, guys, if you haven't ever decided to follow Jesus, I encourage you to do that today. It will be the best decision you guys could ever make. Please, if you haven't decided to follow Jesus, in the description below, you will be able to click a link to help you to decide to follow Jesus for the first time. Do that today.
No.